Hello and welcome back to our channel. For our new listeners, this is a space where we explore insightful ideas on two of the most important journeys we can take: the journey to mastering our personal finances and the journey to building a life of meaning. Once again, welcome. And now, let's begin today's topic. I'll start today's episode with a short story. Some time ago, I read an old biography of a little-known explorer. The book recounted his entire adventurous journey, from his childhood to the expeditions he undertook that would eventually change the world map. It was a brilliant piece of writing, but what stayed with me the most wasn't the journeys themselves, but the final line inscribed on his tombstone, written by a close friend. The inscription was just 4 words: "A life well lived." 4 simple words, yet they echoed endlessly in my mind. It was more than just a compliment. It was the final summary of an entire existence. It forced me to pause amidst the hustle of my own life and ask myself a question. How must I live my life so that at the end of the journey, I can look back and smile, knowing that it was, indeed, a life well lived? And from that thought, an even bigger question emerged, one that is perhaps the foundation for all our important decisions. How do we want our life story to be told? Not how others will tell it, but how we, in our quietest moments, will recount our own story to ourselves. It is a story of our choices, our values, our stumbles, and our triumphs. In today's episode, we will explore a map, a mental framework, to help us find the answer to that very big question. On this map, our lives can be divided into 3 major phases. The first phase, spanning from when we step out into the world until around our mid-30s, I call the investment phase. This is because, in my view, in anything in life, to reap a sweet harvest, we must first have days of diligent sowing. To use the language of finance, to get high returns, we must have days of tightening our belts to invest. It would be entirely unreasonable to expect a sweet harvest later on without putting in the hard work first. Therefore, as soon as we begin to take charge of our own lives, around the age of 18, when we are handed the keys to our own destiny, that is the moment we must immediately begin this investment phase. So what do we invest in? In my opinion, we should invest in 4 key areas: experience, knowledge, finances, and mindset. These are the 4 pillars that will form a solid foundation for the entire structure of your life. Now, the next question is, what is the most effective way to invest in these 4 areas? To answer that, let's return to our original question. How do we want our life story to be told? This is a critical question, because if we can't find an answer, meaning as long as we don't know what we want our life to become, we will continue to walk forward aimlessly, fumbling in the dark. When you don't know where to go, you tend to follow the beaten path. You see others go one way, so you follow. And when you follow the beaten path, you are entrusting your life to chance. If you're lucky, that path will lead you to a place of happiness. If not, it will lead you to things you do not want. By the time you realize it, you may have already walked through most of your life. Therefore, one of the most important goals is to draft a preliminary sketch of the picture you want to paint for your life. And the most effective way to do that is to have plenty of raw materials. The raw materials here are the things that will make you feel happy. The more of these materials, the better. Why do I say this? Imagine if we asked a concert pianist what they want their life's portrait to look like. Their answer would certainly revolve around activities related to the piano and music. But if we ask the same question to a young person who has just graduated, who doesn't know what they like or want, it would certainly be very difficult for them to answer. Thus, This question is both difficult and easy. It's difficult if we have no raw materials, if we don't know what we like or what we're passionate about. It's easy when we know clearly what brings us joy and happiness. So, how do we find our passion? How do we gather these raw materials? The answer lies in the first pillar of the investment phase: experience. Experience is the only way we can truly understand the world and ourselves. It's very hard to stand on the outside looking in and determine whether you like something or not. The only way to know is to experience it long enough and deeply enough. When starting something new, like learning an instrument, the initial phase is always frustrating, filled with dry, basic theory. But if you persist, you will gradually find joy in it, and that joy may grow into a passion. If you give up too soon, you might miss an opportunity to discover something you love. But even if, after becoming proficient, it still doesn't hold enough appeal to keep you going, at least you have a definitive answer as to whether it's your passion or not. That, too, is incredibly valuable data. Therefore, in these early years, if you are still searching, just experience as much as you can. From trying a part-time job, joining a club, backpacking, to learning a new skill completely unrelated to your field. Whenever an opportunity to experience something new arises, embrace it and see it through. This is the time in your life when you have nothing to lose. You step out into the world empty-handed. Ultimately, we live to experience. The more you try, the higher the probability you'll find something you truly love. It's hard to play just a few games and expect to immediately find your favorite. But imagine if you've played 100 games, you will surely find a few that you enjoy. Once you have enough experience, I believe you will certainly find a passion for yourself. In fact, continuously experiencing countless things over a long period might even lead you to discover more than one passion, and that would be a wonderful thing. The second pillar we need to build in the investment phase is knowledge. And when I talk about knowledge, I'm not just talking about university degrees or professional certifications. Everyone knows that knowledge is important. But what's more important than knowledge itself is the mindset about learning it. We need to cultivate what is called a growth mindset. This concept, popularized by psychologist Carol Dweck, is the belief that intelligence and talent can be developed through effort and learning, as opposed to a fixed mindset, which believes these traits are unchangeable. A person with a fixed mindset avoids challenges for fear that failure will expose their weaknesses. They give up easily and see effort as fruitless. In contrast, a person with a growth mindset believes that all abilities can be honed and improved through effort, learning, and persistence. They see challenges as opportunities to grow, failure as a lesson, and effort as the path to mastery. Building a growth mindset during this phase is critically important. It's the foundation for lifelong learning. Especially in the era we live in, where knowledge changes daily, access to information is open to everyone, regardless of status or wealth. All you need is a computer or even just a phone with an internet connection. The playing field of knowledge is much more level now. Therefore, we just need to cultivate a spirit of continuous improvement and effective methods of learning and research, and from there we can study any field we desire. The third crucial pillar, one that will determine the quality of your life later, is the journey to financial freedom. We need to start this as early as possible, right from the very first paycheck. The first step on this journey is to be able to support yourself, to break free from dependence on family. Therefore, whether you go to college or not, right after 18, you should get a job to become financially independent. To be independent, you basically just need to be able to provide for yourself. And this is not difficult at all. You just need to do some kind of work. After you can support yourself, you must immediately begin the journey of accumulating and building your financial freedom. And as we know, with the right method, an average journey to financial freedom takes about 10 years, give or take. In our model,
we have a total of 17 years in the investment phase. Therefore, I believe that with the right mindset, combined with perseverance, and the right methods, this 17-year period is certainly enough for us to reach the destination of financial freedom. That is why we should start the financial journey as early as possible. And finally, the fourth pillar, the one that binds the other three together: mindset. The act of working, beyond providing you with the finances to support yourself, will allow you to accumulate countless other valuable life assets. And these life assets will be the foundation for building the solid mindsets for your future life. I have always believed that our mindsets are incredibly important. And so during this entire period, we just need to focus on investing in these four areas: experience, knowledge, financial freedom, and building our mindsets. I call these four aspects life capital. As we continuously accumulate more life capital, we will gradually understand more about who we are and what we want. From there, we will begin to envision the picture we want for our lives. However, I must also add that we shouldn't expect what we sketch out in this phase to be a fixed blueprint. We shouldn't view that draft like an architectural plan for a house where it must be built exactly as drawn. Because if that were the case, life would be quite boring. Instead, let's see it as a compass that points us in a general direction. Along the journey, we can take detours as circumstances and life stages change. But thanks to that compass, our overall journey will still head in a specific direction, the one that will bring us the most happiness.
Now, let's take a comprehensive look back at what we've built during this 17-year period. First, there are the countless experiences we've accumulated over such a long time. Alongside that is a broad and deep base of knowledge we've continuously gathered by learning and improving ourselves. Then, we've also built a series of solid mindsets for ourselves. For example, the mindset of financial freedom, the mindset of knowing what is enough, the mindset of freedom from materialism, the growth mindset that allows us to continuously experience and embrace new things, and the mindset of perseverance and not giving up, of seeing things through to the end. And there are many other different mindsets developed through this continuous process of experiencing and learning. Behind us, at this point, is the sturdy shield of financial freedom. From now on, our lives no longer have to be influenced by money. And most importantly, ahead of us is a compass, the very picture we've sketched out for the life we want to live. At this point, we know clearly what we want to do and what will bring us the most happiness. With such a foundation, we can now freely enjoy life in any way we choose. This is when we enter Phase 2, enjoyment and contribution. Let's assume that you wish to build a family. With a solid financial and mental foundation, you can provide your family with a very comfortable life. The mindset you've built will serve as a strong pillar of support for them. Furthermore, with the extensive knowledge you've accumulated, you can pass it on and raise your children in the best possible way. With such a foundation, you can be completely at ease to enjoy family life with your small family, savoring life to its happiest heights. Now, let's assume that family life is not your choice. Suppose you prefer business or work. You are completely free to comfortably pursue business and work as you see fit. At that point, you engage in business with the mindset that you still have safety nets behind you. With such a mentality, you can easily play the riskiest games without fearing anything. You will find it easier to take risks than those people who have to mortgage their family's property for a 50-50 gamble, where a loss means the whole family is out on the street. I don't believe that in such a game, those people would have the advantage. They will always have to negotiate from a position of weakness. Not to mention, besides money, behind you is a wealth of solid knowledge and useful mindsets. Your business game at this point will be very interesting. And the important thing is that throughout this journey, whether it goes up or down, you will always be in a state of enjoyment.
Furthermore, with the freedoms you've built, you can absolutely play multiple games at once and still play them well and enjoy them. For example, you can simultaneously play both the business game and the family game. And it's certain that with the foundation of finance, knowledge, and mindset that you can play both of these games at the highest level of excellence. You could even play more and still play them well. This is the phase where you can enjoy the fruits of your years of investment and sowing. Thanks to those years of investment, you now have the freedom to find your own happiness. You are completely free to do whatever it is that makes you happy. And gradually, this happiness will grow larger and larger, and it will lead you to the higher tiers of the happiness pyramid. That is when you begin to seek joys that transcend your own personal happiness, when you start to find happiness in bringing value to those around you. This is when you can start to build a second path, a path of contribution, sharing your happiness with others. This is when you can start to allow yourself to think about the legacy you will leave behind after you depart from this world. When mentioning this aspect of sharing, many people might immediately think of charity, but in reality, it can take many different forms. It could be science, where you are free to devote your heart and soul to researching the solution to a problem, or it could be establishing companies or organizations to solve a certain problem for society. Or it could be as simple as sharing the knowledge you've accumulated with those around you, with the younger generations. In short, it can be in any form as long as it brings you happiness and brings value to others. At this point, you might gradually shift your focus from your primary activities and start concentrating more on this act of contribution, for a simple reason. This is when you begin to seek the higher tiers of happiness. And this journey may also be very challenging, not necessarily smooth sailing, but even with its challenges, with the foundation you have, it will still be a very happy journey.
When that journey of contribution has matured, that's when we begin to enter the final phase of the map, Phase 3, Legacy and the Later Years. This is the phase where we begin to prepare for succession, for both our primary activities and our acts of contribution. If that primary activity is a family, then succession means passing on the wisdom and principles we've gathered to our children and grandchildren so they can chart their own course. You'll notice I'm not talking about leaving money to our children. I have a belief that we shouldn't leave large sums of money to our descendants. Instead, let's leave them something far more valuable: the lessons, the ways of thinking, the mental models, the methods of learning. With these tools, they can start from zero and still build a successful and happy life. Without these things, no matter how much money we leave behind, we would only be doing them a disservice. That is in the case where our primary activity is a family. If, as in the second example, our primary activity is not a family, but a business, then this is the time when we prepare and train the next generation of leaders to gradually pass the torch to them. The same applies to our activities of contribution. At some point, we will also begin to prepare for succession, because we all want those activities, those values, to continue after we are gone. The main goal of this phase is to focus on building these transitions. After that period, it's a time when we start to gradually step back to observe and guide our successors. And slowly, we can step back and watch everything continue to operate without us. This is the time when we can sum up the lessons, the experiences, the wisdom we have acquired, because with a life like that, these will surely be very precious lessons for future generations. And after all that is done, we can continue to enjoy the remaining time we have, to then gently pass the 70-year mark, enjoy our bonus years, and smile as we await the day we bid farewell to a life well lived.
What I've shared with you today
revolves around three grand concepts: independence, freedom, and happiness. As soon as you step into the world, strive for independence as early as possible, starting with financial independence, being able to provide for ourselves. Then, gradually, independence in thought, in knowledge, in mindset. From there, we build the foundations of freedom: financial freedom, freedom from materialism, and the freedom to live life on our own terms without being influenced by anything else. Once you have freedom, it becomes the solid foundation upon which you can find your own happiness. And the very journey of improving yourself every day, of witnessing what you've invested in and planted grow larger, gradually leading you to the goals you want, all of that will also bring you immense happiness. The result is that you will have a life full of happiness, a life well lived, a life worth living not just for yourself, but for those around you as well. There is a beautiful saying: try to leave the world a little better than you found it. And I believe that is a destination that all of us want to strive for. It's just that sometimes life is too difficult. It pulls us into the worries of daily life, so it doesn't allow us to think about such distant things. What I've shared in today's episode is a suggestion for a different path, one where we can leave the beaten trails and walk our own road to live a more meaningful life. I'm sharing this path not for you to follow it exactly, but for you to use it as a set of suggestions from which you can add and subtract to suit your own unique journey. The ultimate goal is for us to live a happy and fulfilled life. I hope that through the ideas shared today, you have a clearer vision of a path that may have a higher probability of leading you to happiness. Before we conclude, for those who might be interested in the diagrams and frameworks discussed today, you can find them available for download on our website's library section. If you found this content helpful, please consider sharing it with your friends and family, especially with the younger ones, as I believe it will help them greatly. I wish you a pleasant evening with your loved ones and family.